The night was as dark as pitch, and the moon seemed to have abandoned the world. It was the kind of darkness that clung to you, making it impossible to see beyond your own fear. I found myself deep within the heart of Blackwood Forest, isolated from the comforting glow of civilization's lights. Each step I took felt like a journey into the unknown, my flashlight's beam barely making a dent in the oppressive blackness. The forest around me seemed to breathe, an unsettling symphony of rustling leaves and distant echoing sounds that sent shivers down my spine. Every snap of a twig, every hushed whisper of the wind, seemed like an ominous message from the unseen. The forest's silence was palpable, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Rumors had brought me here, tales of a cursed forest with a history tainted by unexplained disappearances and ghostly encounters. The locals had warned me, begged me not to venture into this forsaken place, but curiosity had gripped me tightly, pulling me deeper into the shadows of Blackwood. I kept moving, one hesitant step after another, my senses heightened to the max. And then it began. A series of soft, ethereal whispers that danced on the edge of my hearing, a chorus of the dead beckoning me onward. My heart raced as the whispers grew louder, their eerie cadence filling the night air. They spoke to me, addressing me by name, each syllable dripping with an unsettling familiarity. Panic clawed at my chest, urging me to turn back, but something, some unexplainable force, pulled me forward. In the heart of Blackwood Forest, I encountered a sight that defied reason, an otherworldly light, cold and blue, illuminating a clearing ahead. The spectral glow bathed the gnarled trees in its otherworldly radiance, and I couldn't resist its call. In the clearing, a figure materialized, an ethereal woman in a tattered gown, her eyes two voids in which nightmares dwelled. She gazed at me, her stare piercing my very soul, and her lips moved in a voice that sounded like distant echoes. She began to speak, a tale of love torn asunder, of betrayal, and of a life claimed by Blackwood Forest. Her voice quivered with sorrow, and her translucent form exuded an overwhelming sense of loss. I stood there, paralyzed by fear, as her story unfolded. It was a tragedy of star-crossed lovers and a sinister secret buried in the heart of Blackwood Forest, a secret that held the souls of the departed in its grip. As the ghostly woman's voice faded into the night, I was left in a state of shock and disbelief. I stumbled my way back to civilization, my mind reeling from the encounter. Blackwood Forest's dark secret weighed heavily on my heart, a chilling reminder that some mysteries are better left unsolved. To this day, the memory of that night haunts me, a night when I ventured into the heart of the haunted Blackwood Forest and came face to face with the supernatural. It's a story I share now, a tale of suspense and terror that serves as a warning to those who dare to tread where the living and the dead converge.
I had recently relocated to Wisconsin, hoping to start afresh in a place that promised tranquility and picturesque landscapes. But little did I know that the peaceful facade of this charming state concealed an eerie and unsettling reality. One chilly evening, I decided to dip my toes into the world of online dating by joining Tinder. I was a 25-year-old American woman eager to connect with people in my new surroundings. That's when I came across Ethan. His profile exuded an air of adventure, with photos depicting a rugged outdoorsman who seemed to thrive in the wild. There was a mischievous glint in his eyes that drew me in, and I couldn't resist swiping right. It was a simple action that would set off a chain of events I could never have anticipated. Our initial conversations were light and friendly, revolving around shared interests in hiking and exploration. Ethan, a true Wisconsin native, began to open up about his experiences in the state. He regaled me with tales of hidden places, off-the-beaten-path trails, and mysteries that lingered in the corners of Wisconsin's wilderness. One story, in particular, piqued my curiosity. The tale of an old, forgotten cabin nestled deep within the woods. According to Ethan, this ancient structure had a chilling reputation. He spoke of flickering lights, ghostly apparitions, and inexplicable noises that had sent shivers down the spines of those who had dared to venture inside. As a newcomer to Wisconsin, I was both fascinated and cautious. My curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet Ethan and explore the mysterious cabin together. Little did I know that this decision would lead me into the heart of darkness on a moonlit night, with leaves rustling and secrets lurking in the shadows. I ventured into the depths of the Wisconsin wilderness to meet Ethan. The forest seemed to come alive with whispers of the unknown, and the moon cast eerie shadows across my path. As I approached the cabin, an unshakable sense of unease washed over me. The structure stood before me, its windows shattered, and its wooden walls weathered by time. The air around it felt charged with an otherworldly energy, and I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden within those decaying walls. My heart raced as I took my first steps toward the cabin. The door creaked open with an agonizing groan, revealing a pitch-black interior. I hesitated, but Ethan urged me to press on, his voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. As I entered the cabin, an icy chill enveloped me, and the world seemed to shift into a surreal and unsettling dimension. The moonlight filtered through the broken windows, casting eerie patterns on the dilapidated furniture. It was in that eerie cabin, surrounded by the oppressive silence of the Wisconsin wilderness, that the true horror of our adventure would unfold. Shadows danced on the walls, and a sense of foreboding hung in the air. I couldn't help but wonder if the stories were true, if there were forces at play beyond our comprehension. In that moment, as I stood in the heart of the cabin, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had entered a realm where reality and the supernatural converged. It was an experience that would forever alter my perception of the world, leaving me with a chilling tale to tell. A Tinder encounter turned Wisconsin nightmare.
The phantom passenger of the Denver ghost train.
I'd always been fascinated by the supernatural, drawn to tales of the eerie and the unexplained. Little did I know that my thirst for the unknown would lead me to a bone-chilling encounter, one that would forever haunt my nights. I was a young man in my early 20s, living in the vibrant city of Denver. My friends and I often sought thrills in the most unconventional places, and one night we stumbled upon a legend that would change our lives. The legend of the Denver ghost train. Story went that, deep in the outskirts of the city, a long-abandoned railway track held the key to a spectral mystery. It was said that an old locomotive, shrouded in a ghostly aura, would appear at the stroke of midnight, its whistle echoing through the night. The bravest souls who dared to board the ghostly train would embark on a journey beyond the realm of the living. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, my friends and I decided to test the legend for ourselves. Armed with flashlights and skepticism, we made our way to the desolate tracks in the dead of night. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow on the rusted rails that stretched into the darkness. As the clock struck midnight, the air grew thick with anticipation. The distant sound of a train's whistle pierced the silence, a haunting, mournful sound that sent shivers down our spines. With trembling hands, we watched as an ethereal locomotive materialized before us, its spectral form illuminated by an otherworldly light. The ghost train stood before us, its empty windows staring like vacant eyes. My friends and I exchanged uneasy glances, but we were bound by a pact of curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth. We boarded the phantom locomotive, our hearts pounding with a mixture of dread and fascination. Inside, the train's interior was a chilling reflection of its spectral nature. Faded seats, dusty windows, and an unsettling chill that clung to the air. We took our seats in stunned silence, unsure of what lay ahead. The train began to move, its wheels screeching on the tracks, and we were propelled into a realm that defied all logic. The world outside the windows morphed into a surreal dreamscape, a nightmarish realm of twisted landscapes and ghostly apparitions. I could feel the presence of otherworldly passengers around me, their forms flickering like candle flames in the darkness. They were souls trapped in an eternal journey, their eyes filled with a haunting sadness. As we traversed this surreal landscape, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of sorrow. The ghostly passengers shared their stories with me. The tragedies that had bound them to this spectral train, the regrets that weighed heavy on their souls. Hours passed like minutes as the ghost train carried us deeper into the unknown. The very fabric of reality seemed to unravel, and I questioned my own sanity as I witnessed scenes that defied explanation. A spectral station where time stood still, a forest of whispered secrets, and a river of tears that flowed eternally. Finally, as dawn approached, the ghost train returned to the desolate tracks where our journey had begun. We disembarked in stunned silence, our minds reeling from the surreal experience. The train vanished into the morning mist, leaving us in a state of profound disbelief. To this day, I cannot fully comprehend the nature of our encounter. Was it a collective hallucination, a shared dream, or a journey into the supernatural? The Denver ghost train had revealed to us a realm beyond the limits of the living, a place where the line between reality and the unknown blurred into obscurity. In the years that have passed, I've often found myself gazing at the moonlight railway tracks, wondering if the spectral locomotive still roams the night, carrying passengers to a world that defies explanation. The memory of that bone-chilling night remains etched in my soul, a journey into the heart of darkness that I will never forget.
Shadows of the Mill City, a Minneapolis haunted.
My name is Emily, and this is the story of a chilling encounter that forever changed my life. It was in the heart of Minneapolis, a city known for its vibrant culture and modern skyline, that I came face to face with the unexplainable. A haunting that still sends shivers down my spine. I was a college student at the time, studying in the bustling heart of the city. The semester had just begun, and the crisp autumn air was filled with the promise of new beginnings. Little did I know that a different kind of beginning awaited me, one that would plunge me into a world of fear and uncertainty. It started innocently enough. I had moved into an old apartment building near campus, a charming yet slightly dilapidated structure that had seen better days. The building had character, they said, and I was drawn to its vintage charm and the promise of independence. My apartment was on the 4th floor, overlooking the bustling streets below. It had tall windows that let in plenty of light during the day, but turned into a canvas for shadows when night fell. It was those shadows that would become the source of my terror. The first night in the apartment was uneventful, marked only by the unfamiliar creaks and groans of an old building settling into the darkness. But as the days passed, I began to notice something strange, odd noises that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. At first, I dismissed them as the quirks of an old building, but as the nights wore on, the noises became more distinct. A soft whispering, as if someone were speaking just beyond the threshold of understanding. The whispers were accompanied by the sound of footsteps, faint and barely audible, yet undeniably real. I told myself it was just my imagination, that the stresses of college life were playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone in that apartment. One evening, as I sat at my desk studying, I saw it, a shadowy figure, darker than the surrounding darkness, moving silently across the room. It was a shapeless, formless presence that seemed to defy explanation. My heart raced as I watched it glide through the room, disappearing into the walls as if it had never been. Fear coursed through my veins as I realized that I was not alone, that something unseen and malevolent shared my space. I began to hear voices, whispers that seemed to echo from another realm. Their words too garbled to comprehend. Desperate for answers, I reached out to a local historian, hoping to uncover any dark history hidden within the walls of my building. What I discovered sent chills down my spine. The building had once been a boarding house in the early 20th century, a place where transient souls had lived and died, leaving behind a trail of unfinished business. Armed with this knowledge, I delved deeper into the mysteries of the building, determined to confront the presence that had invaded my life. I sought out mediums and paranormal investigators, each of them confirming the presence of restless spirits trapped in the building's aging walls. But it was during a seance, held in the dead of night, that I made contact with the entity that had haunted my every moment. The room grew cold as the medium channeled the spirit's energy, and a voice spoke through her, a voice filled with pain and longing. The spirit identified itself as Sarah, a young woman who had died tragically in the building many decades ago. She'd been waiting for someone to hear her, to acknowledge her existence, and to help her find peace. With the guidance of the paranormal investigators, we performed a cleansing ritual, releasing Sarah's spirit from its earthly bonds. As her presence faded from my life, I felt a sense of relief and closure, knowing that I had helped a tormented soul find peace. The apartment building in Minneapolis still stands, its vintage charm concealing the shadows of the past. I moved away from that place, leaving behind the haunting that had forever changed me. But the memories of those eerie nights, the whispers in the dark, and the chilling encounter with Sarah's spirit will stay with me always. A reminder that the line between the living and the dead is sometimes thinner than we dare to imagine.
Whispers of the Cumberland Hollow, a Kentucky murder haunting.
It was born and raised in the heart of Kentucky, where the rolling hills echoed with tales of the past. But none haunted our town quite like the legend of Cumberland Hollow. A story that chilled the blood and sent shivers down the spine. It was a tale of murder most foul, and it was a story I would come to know all too well. My name is Daniel, and I was a young man in my early 20s when I first heard the whispers of Cumberland Hollow. The tale was older than anyone could remember, and it was said to be cursed. It spoke of a murder that had taken place in the darkest corner of our town, a murder that had gone unpunished for generations. As curiosity often does, it got the better of me, and I decided to uncover the truth behind the chilling tale. I enlisted the help of my closest friends, a group bound by a thirst for adventure and a reckless disregard for the warnings of our elders. It was a moonless night when we set out, armed with flashlights and the conviction of youth. The woods around Cumberland Hollow were dense and foreboding, the trees seeming to close in on us as we ventured deeper into the heart of darkness. The legend spoke of an abandoned cabin, hidden away from prying eyes, where the gruesome murder had occurred. We had a crude map drawn by those who had dared to explore before us, and we followed it with a mixture of excitement and dread. The path was overgrown and treacherous, and the air grew colder with each step. The sounds of the forest were replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. As we reached the clearing where the cabin stood, a feeling of unease settled over us. The cabin was a decaying relic, its timbers sagging with the weight of years. It was as if the very wood itself bore witness to the horrors that had unfolded within. With trembling hands, we pushed open the creaking door and stepped into the darkness. The air inside was heavy with the scent of decay, and our flashlights revealed a scene frozen in time. A table set for a meal that would never be eaten, chairs knocked over in a struggle, and a sense of dread that seemed to linger in the very air. But it was the whispers that sent shivers down our spines. Whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, the disembodied voices of the restless dead. We followed the voices deeper into the cabin, our flashlights revealing a staircase leading to a cellar below. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispers grew louder, filling our ears with words we could not comprehend. In the cellar we discovered a hidden chamber, a chamber that held the remains of the murder victim, preserved as if in a grotesque tableau. The sight was enough to make even the bravest among us recoil in horror, but it was then that we heard the voice of the murderer, speaking from beyond the grave. It accused us of disturbing the sanctity of Cumberland Hollow, of trespassing on ground cursed by bloodshed. We fled from the cabin, the whispers of the dead following us into the night. We never returned to Cumberland Hollow, and we never spoke of what we had witnessed. In the years that followed, the whispers haunted our dreams, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked in the heart of our town. The legend of Cumberland Hollow had become a part of us, a story we could never escape, a curse that bound us to the past. And as I stand here now, recounting the tale, I can still hear the whispers. The haunting, accusing whispers of the murdered, echoing through the hollows of Cumberland, a story that will never truly be laid to rest.
The haunting of Detroit's abandoned factory.
I grew up in the heart of Detroit, a city known for its resilience in the face of adversity. But there was one place in this metropolis that had always sent shivers down my spine. The abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a place where shadows danced in the darkness, and the echoes of the past lingered like a haunting melody. I was a young man in my early 20s, full of the bravado that often accompanies youth. One fateful night, my friends and I gathered around a campfire, daring each other to explore the factory that had fueled our nightmares for years. With a mix of dread and excitement, we agreed to venture into the unknown. As we approached the factory, the moon cast an eerie glow upon its rusted, skeletal frame. The air grew thick with tension, and the distant sounds of the city faded into a deafening silence. The factory's broken windows stared at us like empty eye sockets, and the entrance beckoned like the gaping maw of a beast. We entered cautiously, flashlights in hand, our footsteps echoing through the cavernous space. The smell of decay and rust hung in the air, and the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. It was as if the very walls held their breath, waiting to reveal their secrets. As we delved deeper into the factory, a sense of unease settled over us like a heavy shroud. My friends exchanged nervous glances, but none of us were willing to admit our growing fear. The graffiti-covered walls seemed to come alive, telling a story of urban decay and forgotten dreams. It was then that we heard it. The faint, mournful sound of a child's laughter echoing through the darkness. Our flashlights flickered, and a chilling breeze swept through the factory, carrying with it the whispers of lost souls. Panic gripped us as we tried to locate the source of the haunting laughter. With trembling hands, I pushed open a door that led to a dimly lit room. What I saw there would haunt me for the rest of my days, a spectral figure of a young girl, her eyes vacant and her form translucent. She stood in the corner, her laughter now replaced by a mournful sob. My heart pounded as I approached her, my voice trembling as I asked, "Who are you? What happened here?" The girl's ghostly gaze met mine, and she began to recount a tragic tale of a factory accident that had claimed her life. She had been playing hide-and-seek with friends when the world came crashing down around her. As she spoke, the factory's walls seemed to come alive with the echoes of the past. The sounds of machinery, the cries of workers, and the deafening roar of the accident that had sealed her fate. Tears welled in my eyes as I realized that we were standing in a place where countless lives had been shattered. The girl's spirit faded into the ether, leaving us in stunned silence. We fled the factory, our footsteps echoing in the night as we raced to escape its malevolent grasp. The factory's shadows seemed to claw at our backs, reluctant to release us from their grip to this day. I cannot forget that night. The night when my friends and I ventured into the heart of darkness, and the past rose from the ashes to remind us of its enduring presence. Detroit's abandoned factory held secrets that could never be buried, and the specter of that young girl's laughter still lingers in the recesses of my mind, a haunting melody that will never fade.
The Haunting of Chateau Noir, a French nightmare.
I was a young man in my early 20s, hailing from the picturesque country of France. My story begins on a chilling winter's day when my curiosity led me to a place that would forever haunt my nightmares, the foreboding Chateau Noir, nestled amidst the dense forest of rural France. Chateau Noir stood as a testament to a bygone era. Its imposing facade, draped in ivy, cast a foreboding shadow across the landscape. Legends whispered of its dark history, tales of restless spirits and unspeakable horrors that had unfolded within its walls. One gloomy afternoon, driven by a mix of youthful curiosity and reckless daring, I embarked on a journey to explore the infamous chateau. As I approached the towering gates, I could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on me, as if the very stones that built this place held their own malevolent secrets. The gates groaned open, revealing an overgrown path leading to the mansion's entrance. Goosebumps prickled my skin as I ventured deeper into the labyrinthine gardens. The air grew colder, and the silence was broken only by the distant howling of the wind, a symphony of airy notes that set my nerves on edge. Finally, I reached the threshold of Chateau Noir. The door stood slightly ajar, inviting me into its shadowy depths. A shiver ran down my spine as I crossed the threshold, and I found myself in a vast, dimly lit foyer, surrounded by the faded grandeur of a bygone era. The mansion exuded an unsettling aura of abandonment. The walls whispered of secrets long buried, and the creaking floorboards beneath my feet seemed to protest my intrusion. My heart pounded in my chest as I ascended the grand staircase, its steps echoing with each footfall. As I explored further, the sense of being watched became overwhelming. Every corner held the promise of something lurking just out of sight. My flashlight cast trembling shadows, revealing glimpses of dusty, forgotten portraits and decaying furniture that seemed to wither beneath my gaze. I descended into the chateau's dimly lit cellar, drawn by an invisible force that urged me deeper into the abyss. The air grew colder still, and a damp chill settled into my bones. It was there, in that lightless crypt, that I felt an unmistakable presence, a spectral energy that clawed at the edges of my consciousness. The sensation of icy fingers brushing my neck sent a surge of terror through my veins. I turned to find a figure draped in tattered rags, standing in the darkness. Its eyes, void of life, bore into my very soul. It beckoned me with a skeletal hand, its voice a ghostly whisper that echoed in the cavernous cellar. The apparition recounted a tragic tale of betrayal and suffering, a tale that had bound it to this forsaken place for eternity. My own breath hung in the air, suspended in a chilling moment of disbelief and horror. I stumbled backward, scrambling to escape the cellar's suffocating embrace. As I burst through the chateau's doors and into the frigid night, I could feel the weight of that tormented spirit clinging to me, its anguished cries echoing in my ears.